First tonight, Violet Grace Ewens was just 4 years old when she was killed by a speeding hit-and-run driver in a stolen car. Now, months after the man behind the wheel was allowed to leave prison, her parents' campaign for a change in the law is about to become a reality.
From tomorrow, drivers who kill could face life sentences. Violet Grace's family, who are from St Helens, hope it will be a deterrent to anyone tempted to be reckless on our roads. Leisha McNally reports.
When Violet Grace's classmates were shopping for new school uniforms, her heartbroken parents were choosing her headstone. The 4-year-old was killed by a hit-and-run driver in a stolen car, a driver going nearly 3 times the legal speed limit, a driver who has now been released from prison.
Even before he was sentenced, we were told by the CPS not to expect double figures for the person that ran over our daughter, stepped over a dying body and was on a flight within 3 hours. And that was when, me and Becky were mortified. He gets to go and enjoy the rest of his life while leaving us to try and still pick up the pieces of what he left us of our life.
Violet's parents, Becky and Glenn, have spent years fighting for tougher jail terms for those who kill with their cars, calling on the government to change the law so that judges can hand down life sentences to the worst dangerous and careless drivers. Overnight tonight, that change will finally come into force, with the new Police, Crime, Sentencing and Courts Act updating the maximum penalty, which was just 14 years when Violet was killed.
Violet's brother was 18 months old when Violet died and he was sentenced. If Ada McCartney got life imprisonment, minimum of 15 years, our son would have been 16, nearly 17, and he would have been at a stage in life where he understands life and death, the justice system. But at the moment, he's just turned 7 and he's still trying to work out why he hasn't got a sister. He doesn't understand it. Where with the life imprisonment, it gives families and with young children time and process to get to a stage where they can make sense of what's happening.
She was only tiny, but Violet wanted to make a big difference, dreaming of becoming a doctor, nurse or teacher. Her family hope these tougher sentences will make people think twice before risking lives behind the wheel, a fitting legacy for a giving little girl.
Now she's not here, it's down to me and Violet's mum, Becky, to do that, and I feel that's what we are doing. And hopefully it'll be a deterrent. Younger people learn to drive at a younger age, and there's faster cars and stuff, and they've got to learn that car is a lethal weapon. Doing 80 miles an hour in a 30 zone is not an accident, that's intentional. People need to know that how this shatters people's lives, how it changes everyone's life.
Violet's family say it's now down to the courts to use these new powers grieving families have fought for, in the hope that tougher jail sentences will mean fewer lives lost on the region's roads. Leisha McNally, ITV News.
Well, next tonight, the Barristers strike, and we hear from one who says he was paid just 49p an hour when he calculated how much time he'd spent preparing for a trial. He says that's why many in the profession have walked out on strike today in a dispute over legal aid funding.
The government's proposing a 15% pay rise, which barristers claim is not enough and won't apply to a huge backlog in cases. Our correspondent Elaine Wilcox reports.
It is unusual to see wigs and gowns on a picket line. Most of these courtrooms in Manchester are empty as barristers walked out in a dispute over how they're paid.
We have made our case over and over again to government, but our warnings continue to fall on deaf ears. They have no solution to saving the criminal justice system.
Barristers are demanding an eye-watering 25% pay rise to deal with a backlog of almost 60,000 cases and to stop junior colleagues leaving the profession.
Today is the first day ever in my entire career that I've not turned up at court for a client. I've always turned up even if I'm sick. That is because things have reached an absolute breaking point.
You are seen as an elite profession. There are people who are going to food banks on 0-hour contracts. They won't have much sympathy for your cause.
Junior barristers in their first 3 years A lot of them are earning less than minimum wage. We're doing this job because we want to help people. We want to help the criminal justice system and get justice for victims and defendants.
The government has urged barristers to accept an inflation-busting 15% pay rise, claiming today's action will delay justice for victims. But those here on the picket line say justice is already being delayed, with rape victims waiting on average of 4 years to go to trial, waiting so long that many walk away. Barristers claim they now earn less than a barista in a coffee shop because of hours of unpaid work.
I've done cases where when you've added in the preparation work, often which you don't get paid for, you could be earning on certain cases about 49 pence an hour. That is a real case which I've done in the past.
They say crime doesn't pay. Is it something that you'd be looking to walk away from?
If it becomes untenable, I, like everybody else, will have to find a way to survive.
Simply increasing wages at a time of inflation could exacerbate the problem, and that's why, although it's challenging and difficult, we do need to see some wage restraint during this period.
That's little comfort for those planning to step up their protests, calling on the government to listen to their arguments and protect the justice system. Elaine Wilcox, ITV News, Manchester.
Well, in the past few hours, more strikes have been confirmed, this time for post office workers. Unions say some staff will walk out on Monday, the 11th of July.
It's over what they describe as a pay cut in real terms. More than 100 main post offices across the country will be affected.
Well, next tonight, there's a warning across the northwest not to be complacent about COVID as rates begin to rise again.
In Lancashire, around 5% of hospital beds are occupied by COVID patients. That's higher than in the past few months, with community transmission also rising.
Those who have not yet been vaccinated or have not had all 3 jabs are being urged to come forward. Jennifer Buck has this report.
Coming to get the booster jab on her lunch break, Paulina is going on holiday and one of the many people choosing to get vaccinated over the summer months to make sure they can get away.
So I'm going to Tenerife, so you do need to either be vaccinated or have a test before, so rather not risk it until the last few days.
I've had my 2 jabs and I've come for my 3rd booster because I'm travelling abroad and I just wanted to stay safe.
Staying safe is still the key message, and one that is still so important here. As COVID levels rise in the northwest, health bosses are warning against complacency.
I think there's some evidence that community transmission is rising. It's a bit difficult to be really accurate because fewer people test these days. In terms of patients in hospital, about 5% of our patients are COVID positive. But not all of those people have been admitted for treatment for COVID. So it is on the rise somewhat.
Across the country, 1.7 million people in private households are estimated to have had COVID last week. That's a rise of 23% from the week before. And while vaccination centres are quieter, they are still very much open for business. At the height of the pandemic, this vaccination centre in Preston was vaccinating around 1,400 people a day. That's now more like 100 vaccines a day. And while the figures have gone down, there's still a very important message to come here.
We know that COVID figures are rising. Get yourself vaccinated. COVID hasn't gone away, but we are learning to live with it. Being fully vaccinated will protect you and your friends and your family.
Judy Pendlebury has been leading the vaccination team since the centre opened in February last year. She says staff once based here are now reaching out to more people than ever.
Is taking the vaccine out to the hard-to-reach people. So we have teams going out into homes. So we've been out and vaccinated asylum seekers.
And it seems the message to get vaccinated is getting through, as 85-year-old Edna gets her booster.
Well, I wasn't going to have it done, to be truthful. And then my daughter-in-law is a nurse. And then my family kept saying, you must have it, get going. And I kept putting it off, and I thought, I just plucked up the courage and come today to have it done.
Now health bosses want us to make the most of summer and socialise outside to avoid higher COVID cases heading into the colder months. Jennifer Buck, ITV News in Preston.
More news, and the radio DJ Adele Roberts says that she's now cancer-free after 8 months of treatment. The Radio 1 presenter from Southport revealed in October she was having treatment for bowel cancer and later had a tumour removed. She's since shared her experiences with the aim of raising awareness.
And some good news from one of the North West's newest visitor attractions. RHS Garden Bridgewater in Salford opened last summer and has just been awarded first place in the European Garden Prize. It comes just weeks after its Welcome Centre was declared the region's Building of the Year.
Yeah, beautiful place too. Well, still to come.
We build up to the Women's Euros with the player who says she wants to light up the nation.
And it's a changeable weather week for all of us. If you're particularly interested in Wimbledon, however, there's been 1 or 2 showers this afternoon. Tomorrow probably looking the best day of the next few. The forecast for the northwest is coming up later on.
Yeah, just have to mention Wimbledon and it starts raining. OK, now let's cross to Mary with details of the ITV News.
A packed shopping centre in eastern Ukraine is hit by missiles. President Zelensky says 1,000 people were inside at the time, adding it is of no strategic value. At a meeting in Germany, the G7 pledges to support Ukraine for as long as it takes. Here, a woman has died and a man's left with life-threatening injuries after a gas explosion destroys a house in Birmingham. Another week, more strikes. This time it's barristers walking out over pay. And Emma Raducanu and Andy Murray, a British double billing on the first day of Wimbledon. Do join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Now, as it's Pride Month, it's time for people in the LGBTQ+ community to celebrate their history and recognise the impact they've made.
But it's also a time for reflection and recognising how far many people have come on their own journeys.
Matty's story is the first of 5 that we're featuring this week as part of our Pride of the Northwest series.
My name is Matty. My pronouns are they, them, and I identify as a lesbian. When I was younger, I really just assumed that everyone was into AFAB. And AFABs, for anyone that doesn't know, is assigned female at birth. And then around the age of 19, I really sat down with myself and did a lot of soul searching and realised that I'm a lesbian. I feel like for a long time I kind of tried to deny it. And I can admit that was probably a bit of internalized homophobia, where I just felt like that's something that I didn't want to admit to myself. But once I finally did, it's kind of like, after a long day and you've been carrying loads of heavy stuff and you've just been surrounded with you just feel suffocated. Once I finally came out to myself and kind of accepted that, I just felt like I just took off all the heavy backpacks, all the wet, soggy clothes, and I just felt so free and finally comfortable in me. You shouldn't have to validate your sexuality. If you say that you're a lesbian, then people should just take it as such. But I had a lot of people trying to tell me that that wasn't the case, and in the end, having to really bare my soul and kind of again go through that whole process that I had to go through with myself. I had to go through it with other people, especially in the world that we live in and with how many opinions there are. No one wakes up and says, I'm gonna make my life hard. Do you know what I mean? No one wakes up and wants to know that they could be fetishized, harassed, invalidated, just completely bullied and destroyed just for who they are. And to those that say that it's a choice, I pose the same question: is your sexuality a choice? Whenever it's Pride Month, I think I go above and beyond to try and be as gay as possible and include as many people as possible and really just kind of share whatever time has been lost for ourselves or for people that don't feel like they can celebrate yet. And even just for myself, where I feel like maybe I wasn't able to celebrate as much, I make sure I always get it in this time. Happy Pride Month, everyone.
Well done, Matty. And tomorrow we speak to Sam, who talks about the struggles that he's faced as a black and gay man.
Well, next tonight, it was one of the most extraordinary gigs ever, and one that people will be talking about for generations to come.
Yeah, I loved it. So Paul McCartney made history at the weekend, becoming the oldest solo headliner at Glastonbury at the age of 80.
Yeah, we loved it. The sheer joy of that crowd singing was a truly emotional and spine-tingling sight. He performed for nearly 3 hours. He was joined on stage by Bruce Springsteen and Dave Grohl. Rob Smith is with us. It was incredible to watch, wasn't it?
It was just jaw-dropping. I mean, it's one of those moments, isn't it? I think that you'll watch that on TV, you'll never ever forget it. Yeah. If you were lucky enough to be at Glastonbury, you're going to be able to say, forever and a day, I was there when. To be able to see the man himself still performing, still giving it his all, still delivering that back catalogue, without which we would have none of the music that we've got today, was just something else. And that moment where he sang with virtual John Lennon, he himself said, that was so special. It was like they were back together. And to hear the crowd sing him happy birthday, how many artists ever get that at age 80? If you didn't catch any of it, here's a little taster. You know, I still can't believe that song is the best part of 50 years old. That seems unreal. There's been a lot of comments online that his voice isn't all that it used to be when he was a young man. But let's be honest here. This is a man who is 80 years old. If any of us at age 80 can stand up on a stage and sing, stand up and do that, I think we'd all be pretty happy. I went to the Beatles story in Liverpool today, spoke to some fans going around the exhibits. They were so pleased to hear that voice, to hear that music, that they feel unites generations, young and old, and so pleased that this performance was a love letter to his hometown. He spoke so warmly of Liverpool, got the crowd to applaud it. It meant a lot to them.
I've passed his house today at Forthland Road, and the tourists are up the street queuing to see. You know, he's 80 years old, he's still doing Glastonbury.
Most people appreciate the Beatles, even young and old, and they all enjoy his music.
My daughter, she's only 18, and I'm close to 60, and she's like, I love the Beatles. And I was like, wow, do you understand? Yeah, she's like, I listen to them.
Not everybody wants to retire though, do they?
No.
I mean, a lot of artists in his situation would be just so grateful that they could still do it.
Yeah.
And Dave Grohl, I think, will be grateful if he can still do it. 80. Bruce Springsteen is a little nearer, let's be honest.
Great night, wasn't it? Great night.
Yeah, I want a pint of whatever he's on.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
OK, on to sport now. And Barcelona could be chasing Manchester United's captain. Here's Chris.
Yeah, someone's knocking at the door, as Paul McCartney might say, but it seems unlikely that United will open the door and let them in. Harry Maguire is believed to have told Manchester United that he wants to stay at Old Trafford, despite interest from Spain. Reports suggest Barcelona want the defender as part of a deal which would see Frenkie de Jong join United, but Erik ten Hag wants to keep him. In other transfer news, Manchester City's Gabriel Jesus is apparently on the brink of signing for Arsenal for £45 million. Next to the footballer from Barrow targeting success on home soil before moving overseas. After 7 years with Manchester City, Georgia Stanway will play at Bayern Munich next season. But before she heads to Germany, her focus is on helping England win a home Euros, which kicks off next week, as David Chisnall reports.
Football is hot.
Kick-off to next month's Women's Euros is edging ever closer, and after seeing what England's men achieved last summer, Barrow's lioness Georgia Stanway is feeling inspired.
You've seen the crowds that they got in, the bubble it created, literally lit up the nation, and that's just what we want to do. We want to try and inspire the next generation. We want to put smiles on people's faces. We want people to enjoy watching women's football. So we're just going to go out there, going to give it our all, and we're just going to try and do the nation proud.
Stanway is Manchester City's all-time leading goal scorer, but after failing to nail down a regular position, the forward is making a move to German club Bayern Munich.
I've been at Manchester City for 7 years now, and I'm not saying that I become complacent, but it's you kind of get comfortable in the same environment. So I just wanted to mix things up, and the best way to do it was pack your bags, pack your suitcases, get on a flight and move to a different country.
Well, as the 23-year-old prepares for life overseas, how's her German?
Very, very slim. I was going to say 9 then, but that's probably the wrong word as well. I've had a few lessons on Duolingo, 5 minutes here and there, trying to write things in a notebook, but yeah, it's going to be hard.
Stanway is with England at the moment, with excitement and anticipation building for the home Euros. At least there's the distraction of Love Island, which this year she has personal connection to.
Well, I actually went to school with Jax, so he was in my year at school, grew up playing rugby with him, so I'd be lying if I'm not rooting for him, so hometown, so I'll support the local.
Well, support from the England fans will be in full flow for Stanway and her teammates as the Euros and football comes home. David Chisnell, ITV News.
In cycling, Mark Cavendish will not get to compete at the Tour de France this year. The Manx missile, who won his second national road race title at the weekend, last year equalled the record for stage wins on the Tour, but it's been confirmed today that he does not have a ride for this year's Tour, which starts on Friday.
Next, the family of a war veteran who is celebrating his 100th birthday tomorrow are hoping a medal from France will arrive in time for the big day.
Ernest Morris from Cheshire should receive the country's highest Order of Merit for his bravery in Normandy during World War II, but it's been delayed. Victoria Grimes reports.
For war hero Ernest, the birthday celebration started early and with great fanfare. Tomorrow, Ernest turns 100. His family say the best present would be to have his extraordinary wartime bravery recognised by the French Légion d'honneur. For Ernest himself, his memories of those heroic acts is crystal clear. He recalls the night he saved a village full of people in Holland as if it were yesterday.
And this man came out of his house. He said, "I've got an unexploded shell in my cellar where all the ladies and children are. Can you do anything?" I decided I'd pick it up like a baby, and I picked it up and put it on my arms. I went in the back garden.
So you've carried this unexploded shell out of the house like it's a baby, and you've saved the lives of all those people. You must have been terrified.
My mind said, "Do it," and I did it.
Not long after, Ernest was badly injured when a shell hit his trench.
There was this mighty bang, and I didn't know what would happen, and I just had enough strength to shout, "Stretcher bearer, stretcher bearer." One of those pictures you've got was the garage, what we were using for the Red Cross.
Ernst lost his right leg and was paralysed down his left side in the attack. And it's these extraordinary personal sacrifices that his family want to honour. But despite being nominated for the award more than a year ago, it still hasn't arrived.
There has been no response at all, unfortunately, from the French embassy. It's almost as if they've slammed the door, and it upsets me that I think that medal, for what he's been through and all the upsets and fighting that he did, that he deserves that medal, not just for himself, but for all the comrades that fell in war.
And amongst those fallen colleagues, Ernest's best friend, George.
Even now, I say good morning to him every morning. Even now. I tell him what's been going on.
How long have you been doing that for?
8 years.
For now, Ernest's family are clinging to the hope that the award may arrive in time for his birthday, to honour not just Ernest, but all his fallen colleagues and friends as well. Victoria Grimes, ITV News, Cheshire.
We hope so. We contacted the French Embassy in London about that story, but we have yet to receive a response.
Weather now, here's Joe.
Now that is brew weather.
And only boiling what she needs.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Big up you, sis.
Thank you. A very good evening to you. Some bright and sunny spells around today, but what a wet start to the day for the west coast. And more rain to come for western areas again through tonight and into tomorrow. A windy day in prospect for many coastal parts, with showers elsewhere and during the middle part of the week remaining unsettled and rather changeable. And it's all thanks to low pressure, which is nudging in from the west, providing us with fronts that are going to bring spells of showery rain over the next few days, the heaviest of which will be through the first part of tomorrow morning for western coasts. As we go through this evening, however, mostly quiet, settled conditions for many of us. It's breezy and that wind will pick up as we go through the night. But out towards the west, rain and cloud is nudging in, and the Isle of Man will see that before dawn. But many other areas should remain largely dry with clear skies and temperatures probably hovering at around 10 or 11 degrees. On to tomorrow. The sun will be rising tomorrow morning at 4:42, setting at 9:45 tomorrow night. A real west-east split across certainly our region tomorrow. The Isle of Man, Cumbria, Lancashire coast and Merseyside later will have some rain, and it will be very heavy further west with strong gusty winds. Further east, we're just about holding on to drier weather through much of the afternoon. However, cloud will increase. It's not going to feel particularly good in that wind, I wouldn't have thought, although temperatures on paper are getting up to around 19 Celsius. Not a very summery vibe at all tomorrow. And looking ahead over the next few days, further showers to come. Wednesday, 1 or 2 sharp ones. Thursday, some heavy thundery downpours. Friday should be a little drier and brighter. Here's the pollen.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
2 sugars, please.
Oh, lovely.
Hello, summer. Piri sponsors ITV pollen count.
Despite the fact we are in peak grass pollen season, this unsettled weather is actually doing us hay fever sufferers a bit of a favour. Levels have dipped slightly, and over the next few days it's likely to be moderate. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jo. Tomorrow we're live at the Lytham Festival, and after her success at Glastonbury, Diana Ross is one of the headliners. Of course, she's only 78.
Quite a bit younger than Sir Paul. Don't miss that. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye.